A big one is strength. We need a president that's strong. We need a country that's strong. We look unbelievably weak as a country to the world right now. Biden is a weak president. He's weak on all fronts. Yeah. All fronts. Crime here, borders, internationally, terrorism.
Economically.
What a boy is, what a girl is. Absolutely everything.
Easter is International Trans Visibility Day.
Exactly.
And we are back to the Unyielding podcast. My name is Mike, and these are my friends, and we're going to have a conversation. This is a podcast where we talk about anything and everything from a Christian perspective. And this morning we want to talk about 2024. We got a big election year coming up, and we want to talk about Donald J. Trump. So the man, the myth, the legend. So as we get into it, let's pray, and then we'll start. Lord, we love you, God. We pray, Father, this podcast will be useful and productive, Lord, for your kingdom, God, that you would use it. And Lord, that we would be pleasing to you. Lord, come and help us in Jesus' name. Amen. Today, we're going to be talking about Donald Trump. And the reason is because over the last 8 years, this has been a conversation that has been going on in the church. Trump has been obviously a very polarizing figure.
No.
Yeah. And we're all, in this podcast, we're not trying to be provocateurs. We're not trying to talk about scandalous things, but we want to talk about what people are actually thinking about. We want to talk about what's going on in our world. And we got a big election. We got a decision again. Who are you going to vote for? And how should Christians be thinking about a vote for Donald Trump? I in 2016, I'll just tell you how I voted. In 2016, I did not vote for Trump. There is no world where I'd vote for Hillary Clinton. So I voted for a third party here in California. I'll probably get into the reasons why. But then in 2020, I did vote for Trump in California. And that's where I live, that's where I vote. And so I did vote for Trump, and I did so with a clear conscience for what I thought were Christian reasons. So I guess the question is for us, I don't know, I think all five of us are probably voting for Trump. Yeah. Yes, Tobias confirms that all five of us are voting for Trump. How do you get there as a Christian? What are the kind of problems that you see? Has it been a difficulty at all? What has been your calculus in deciding that you're going to cast your vote for Donald J. Trump?
Yeah, I think one of the things that people discount him, when people look to Trump like he should be a role model for our kids, that's not true. He's not a Christian role model. He's not really a role model in most of his life, I would say. He is, I think we've said it before, he is a deeply flawed person, just like a lot of us are. He might be even more flawed than most of us. But what he is supposed to do is run the country. And the policy and what he's done when he was in office, you can't argue with, especially when the choices are Biden versus Trump. And we can get into some of those reasons, but as a Christian, he doesn't have to be perfect, and he doesn't even have to be a Christian necessarily to run the country.
Yeah, I was going to say, even let's rewind the clock to when Mitt Romney was running for president. There were a lot of Christian conservatives that had a problem that he was Mormon. And in the conservative Christian movement, we have this idea that your candidate has to check all of your personal boxes before you're going to support them. And really, the lowest form of support is voting for them. You can donate, you can volunteer, you can be an apologist for them. So voting is the lowest form of support. So all that to say is we'll always find something wrong with a candidate. Even Mitt Romney, who is, with regard to character, some would say, much better than Trump. But people were saying, I don't believe in his religion, so I can't vote for him. I'm like, well, you're not voting for commander and pastor. You're not voting for commander and father or dad. You're voting for someone to do a job.
No, I will say, though, if we had some candidate who was an unbelievably strong, outspoken Christian, of course, like I would prefer that. But what we have is Trump and Biden. And Biden, I mean, we can get into it, but just open your eyes.
Well, let's get into it. So one of the points there is that we have a binary choice, right? There's really realistically two people. You can RFK Jr. You can vote third party, but no third party is going to win. The only the only possibilities are at this point are Trump or Biden. Short of something supernatural happening or something, crazy. I guess maybe not supernatural. It's just either one of them could die pretty easily. It seems like, but apart from that, it's going to be Trump or Biden, right? So the choice is binary. That brings a lot of clarity and makes things, I think, a lot easier. Another point that you brought up, though, is that we're also not voting for a pastor or a dad or, who is going to lead your community group. We're voting for a guy to do the job of the President of the United States of America. And it certainly is possible for someone who does not share your same belief system or your same moral code to do a good job in that. Now, that's a little bit yes, but, right? Like, I think godly leaders is a blessing and ungodly leaders is a curse in some ways. And I would look at Trump largely as, in some ways, has been a great blessing to our country, but in other ways is a symbol of a symptom of what's wrong, right? The things I like the most about Donald Trump is because he threatens the things that are trying to tear America apart.
Yeah.
And so he's kind of like, I don't know, he's almost like a guard dog in the house next door who keeps the bad guys away, but like, I don't want my kids.
He's always barking and you wish you would stop talking. What?
Yeah.
I think one of the best analogies I've heard for Trump is that what's happening in our country right now with the current kind of regime and those that are in power is cancer, right? It's eating through our institutions and our government and even our individual lives in a way that is aggressive and dangerous, right, to the country. And so the analogy is that Trump is like chemotherapy.
Right.
No healthy person wants chemotherapy. Right. And actually, the chemo is going to damage your body. It's just that it's going to damage the cancer more.
Yeah.
And so, and maybe people would argue, oh, that's kind of hard. Like calling someone chemo is a little harsh or something. But I think that you could argue that Donald Trump, in his presidency and after and all of those things, that he certainly has this wake as he does his job and as he leads that causes probably quite a bit of damage or irritation or all the inflammation, whatever, all these kind of things in our country. He riles people up in a way. He does damage. He's not perfect. He makes bad decisions along with the good ones. And so I think there's like quite a bit of maybe damage that he brings. But I think the big thing is that he kind of helps to stop the spread of what's happening in the country.
Well, I think one of your points is he doesn't recognize the office of the presidency as something of a place of reverence or nobility. Sure. And he's treating it as a job. And so I think there's some people that he doesn't go through decorum with certain things. And,
right.
He
also like issues out personal insults on social media as the president of the United States. That's
to individuals that aren't really of any relevance, like basketball players.
Right.
And there's a principle in life. It's don't kick every barking dog. So if you're walking down the street and you're walking past these houses and there's every dog that you pass is barking at you and you try and shut them up and kick them enough to shut them up, you're never going to get down the end of the road. And that's what Trump is doing. He's just continually engaging in these spats online.
Hey, before we get into some of the negatives, because I think those are important, what are some of the things that endear Trump to you, or some of the positives that make you think, I think he is actually our best bet? Yeah. I think he's actually a good candidate.
And the reason I think we're going to the negatives is because so people don't stop listening immediately with Trump derangement syndrome, that we're not the ultra MAGA
pom-poms.
Jesus over Trump's shoulder while he's signing his, right? Like that's we don't have that painting up in our homes, right? Like, no, I do believe God can use him, but he is faulted. And so we want to just set the bar of like, he's not perfect and we're not, we should have had that poster hanging.
I know. Which I did vote for DeSantis, and I didn't want Trump to be the Republican nominee.
I voted for Vivek
Ramaswamy. That's a little.
No,
talk about that later. Vivek's got some interesting things.
Yeah, he's interesting.
Hindu. But anyways, without getting into it, I think a lot of us maybe didn't vote for Trump when it looked like weren't supporting Trump, but it looked like there was a possibility. I think by the time it got to us, it was like it's going to be Trump. But what are the things that made you like I'm not disappointed. I actually think as I look back, I could almost see God's blessing or providence in it being Trump again. I think there's some reasons that Trump might be the right guy at the right time. Again here, past 2016. So what are some of the things that make you think 2024 Trump?
A big one is strength. We need a president that's strong. We need a country that's strong. We look unbelievably weak as a country to the world right now. Biden is a weak president. He's weak on all fronts. All fronts. Crime here, borders, internationally, terrorism,
economically.
What a boy is, what a girl is, absolutely everything.
Easter is International Trans Visibility Day.
Exactly. He is a weak president and
Not
a
just
weak.
weak. That one stood out to me as something different. That's not weak. That's,
He's also endorsing evil.
That's
weak and wicked.
That had a different flavor to it. That was on Easter, and so I do think there's something about recognizing what symbols your leader's going to create. The leader always, they're going to set a tone, and so I think what you're talking about with strength too. Like Biden is setting a tone, and it's not just weak, it's wicked. Like that. That move in particular, I think he also, one of his first things was to nominate a transgender man to, I don't know how influential the position was, but it was one of his appointees.
Well, and to that point, we can get into Biden weaknesses too, but case in point, the military prioritizing wokeness and trans and paying for soldiers to cut their penises off. That's not what we need, right? We need fighting men to do what we need to do in war and to protect our country.
So the reason for Trump is it's in contrast to Biden's frailty, weakness, wickedness. There's something about his strength that is we need that. And what's needed? When you talk about strength, right? I don't know how many push-up competitions Trump's going to win. There's a certain kind of it's been hard to put my finger on it for Trump because it actually is probably his greatest quality, which is like I don't care. What we're gonna do this thing, and it doesn't matter what the opposition says.
I think it comes from his background. He built things. And when you're gonna build something, it's going to be super hard. There's going to be lots of roadblocks and challenges, and he just went forward and built it. He pushes through obstacles. He sets his mind on something.
I think he likes the challenge of it. I think he likes to push forward and accomplish.
And just tactically, what he puts his mind on aligns more, I think, with what Christian values should be, regardless of him. Strong borders. I think Christians should, and we talked about that in a podcast, we should recognize that he's about it. So that aligns, even if his...
So let's just say real quick, when we think about the whole thing in 2016 was build the wall, right? It was like such a centerpiece of his thing, and he got a lot of it done. To be fair, he didn't get the whole thing done, but now we look back on that was clearly the right thing to do, right? I mean, build the wall was like it was so obviously a valuable thing for our country it
was a symbol.
And it was
even if it doesn't end up being a wall, what he was doing was creating a symbol that was important. Our borders need to be secure. And if you create a different symbol, you get a different direction for the country. So it's like
symbol. I do think the symbol thing is good, and I think also just getting things done, policy in place, appointing Supreme Court. Well,
let's talk about. We brought up his strength, and that it might come because he has a different background than a lot of our leaders do. He made his money in business. He lived his whole life in real estate development business. I saw the Lex Friedman podcast with Jared Kushner, and I was kind of thought Jared Kushner was just this kind of silver spooned kid. I came in from that podcast like very impressed, and it's just he talked about the difference in mentality of coming into Washington where everybody's politics and business as usual, and like as business leaders it's about results, it's about getting the job done, and how they brought sort of this new mentality, and that was his mentality coming in, that was Donald Trump's mentality, and that it actually there's something productive about it. So I do think that's partly where like the mental fortitude, the tenacity, we're gonna do this, and I don't care. I'm gonna push through the opposition, the obstacles. I do think that strength, where so much is broken right now. You look at Congress, you look at how weak and impotent it's been, how very little they're able to pass, how very little they're able to actually do their job. To have that kind of mentality, I think is valuable. I think it's one of Trump's great strengths.
Well, I think you're right. To your point, everyone says he's a master negotiator, and it's not just the people, the MAGA pom-pom people. It's people who have done work with him in the past, these other real estate moguls who are very successful, and said, he is the best negotiator that I've ever seen in my entire life. One of the people on, what's that show where they, the Shark Tank. A couple of the sharks were like, he's incredible. He can read people. He knows what they want, and he's able to guide a room in a direction. And you've seen that with the Abraham Accords.
Yeah. So the Middle East stuff.
The Middle East stuff was unprecedented.
Right. And it's to see like the rollback of that, how bad it's gotten now with Gaza and what's going on in Israel and that whole thing. And they had done so much to move the ball forward with the Abraham Accords that never fully got, adopted, never fully got put into place. But that was one of the things that Jared Kushner was talking about, and how close they were.
Yes.
And now you just look at just the dumpster fire it is over there.
It's fallen into World War III.
Weakness breeds violence, right? That's what they say. Like it's not strength for the show of strength to look macho, and which Donald Trump also does, right? Some of it, and that's what you have to kind of parse out with Trump, is people get lost in that, and they see the machismo and the boasting and the pride, and that's all there. But he is actually strong in policy and what he's putting in place, and we need that.
Well, in the situation with Iran, too, where that automatically just got recalled, and now Iran
give them billions,
is dropping 3,000 missiles on Israel, and it's like, come on.
Well, and then don't worry, they promise they won't use that money for terrorism.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then you also got to think about the context that we were in when Trump came into office, where North Korea was firing interballistic missiles over Japan, and they were breaking up as they were re-entering atmosphere. Right. But I mean, that was a very serious threat. And that stopped. That stopped when he was there. And so you have to extrapolate that. Like, he is doing something in these rooms just by talking that other world leaders have not been able to do, and the results prove it.
Which is funny because one of the things that I have to, again, I'm not a diehard MAGA, love Trump, follow him. I've never been on Truth Social. I was really sad.
I saw you on there.
I was really sad when Trump was off Twitter, because I really like watching Trump's Twitter feed. I'm not up to date on every single thing that he's saying all the time and following him and thinking, oh yeah, he's so smart. That's all the truth. And so largely, this is another part of it. I have to discount for a little bit the amount of hate, Trump derangement syndrome, the skew, the spin that's put on in general media on Trump, that I've never seen anything like that in my entire life. How aggressively they have gone after Trump, how aggressively they've tried to make him look like a buffoon, take every gaffe, how much they protect Biden, who is out there just soiling himself all over everything, just
literally,
so embarrassing, and how protected he is, how kid gloved he's treated, and then how hard they go after Trump. I've always said, man, if Trump dove into a frozen river to save two babies, they would find some reason to condemn him for it and why he did it and how evil.
And it's another thing I like about Trump is that it's very hard to get leverage on him. He's not under the thumb of anybody. He doesn't need the money. They're trying to take his money. They're trying to take everything they can. They're trying to take him off a campaign trail. They're throwing everything they can at him, but he still is not relenting.
Well, and that's what you said, is he makes the people angry that are destroying America. And that endears me to him, is there's this underlying managerial swamp that everybody's kind of talking about, but they cannot define it very well. Vivek defined it very well. And the one thing that endears me to, I'm going off topic, RFK, is that he's pissing off those same people too. And so there's a
common element.
There's a common element where it's, wait a minute, why are these people so mad at these two candidates that are independent and not beholden to the swamp?
Yeah.
And that endears me.
Yeah, I've always said my favorite thing about Trump is he makes the right people mad. So he infuriates the swamp, the political beltway, the political class, the people who have made their living in Washington, who are making backroom deals and glad handing and like enriching themselves off the American people. Trump drives those people insane, and I love that I love that Trump makes them so angry, because they're what's destroying America, and I think that quality that he has is actually it lets me know that there's something right going on here, is how much they hate it.
And I don't want to spiritualize it without knowing, but the idea of like the things that can be shaken, right?
Yeah.
Like shaking things up, disrupting what's going on. I think that, that's something that God can use.
And to my point where he doesn't have the nobility, he doesn't take that job. Well, maybe that's not the guy that's gonna make those people mad, So
what's the scripture? Something about God using the foolish to confound the wise, right? I mean, I don't know that you can get a whole lot of a better example than Donald Trump coming in. He's kind of a buffoon, you know what I mean?
Right.
And he's prideful, and he's
like, I listened to the. I thought it was such an amazing. I was so looking forward to it. I thought it was such an amazing move where Trump skipped the first Republican debate, and he went on Tucker Carlson, and it was like Tucker Carlson and Trump was like, the ratings were like 10x or whatever with the Republican debate. I just thought, what a G move, and then I listened to it. And Trump came off as like such a junior high girl. It was just drama and all this kind of stuff. And I was like waiting for give me something of substance. I want something to care about. Yeah. And he just didn't give me anything. He just kept talking about, oh, I love that guy. That guy's good. That person, they're terrible. I've made a very good deal with that person, and they reject. He was like, dude, shut up. Like, just give us something.
Yeah, in some ways, I think like the question of like as Christians, how can we vote for someone like Trump? And we're discussing it here that. For many reasons, I think it's not only okay to vote for him; it's probably the prudent thing to do.
Yeah.
But in many ways, it's like he is kind of like, we've got this machine that's been running and is just chewing up our country, right? And he's kind of the wrench,
right?
That you throw in, and it's going to cause, like the other analogy of chemo, like it's not going to be perfect. You're not going to put him in place. And everything is smooth sailing, and like you said, he has this decorum and this nobility, and he restores the honor of the United States and these kind of things. He isn't going to do that, but he might stop some of the damage.
He likes several years ago when Ron Paul was running third party, I always liked the idea of voting for Ron Paul, because I thought if Ron Paul gets elected to president, nothing will get done for 4 years, and nothing getting done for 4 years is actually probably better than what this continued like expansion of the federal government. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that Trump represents something like that, where he's going to be a wrench in the machine, and at least let's shine the light on some of this stuff. Let's point out some of this stuff and see if we can get ourselves to a healthier side.
I think bringing up his America First policy, a lot of people shun that away, like, but we need to care for other people. Give me your tired, give me your hungry, give me your weak. But people are turning away from that. I don't know if you guys have seen in Chicago, all the migrants that are flooding in and taking money from these really depressed areas in Chicago. And these black voters are going to the mayor of Chicago and saying, this money isn't meant for them. We need this money on my block. We need this. And I'm like, that sounds strangely familiar, like an America First policy, which a lot of these voters rejected. And then all of a sudden, this money is being shipped overseas to Ukraine and given to illegal immigrants, shutting down your schools and community centers. And all of a sudden you're like, wait, well, what about us?
Yeah, supporting the having the American flag means something, having pride in your country. I mean, we have so many people. We got queers for Palestine burning American flags, crying, being crybabies on our streets in safety because of where they live.
Yeah, right.
And they're chanting death to America.
Yeah.
It blows my mind. We need something to, and that's one thing I like about Trump.
It was very recent. I don't know, but there was a group somewhere, in Chicago maybe, or Milwaukee or something like that, Minnesota. And there was a rally, and the leader of the rally was saying like, death to America.
Yeah, they're all chanting it, right?
I don't know, but I feel like if President Trump was president, he would make a personal response to that guy. And there is something about that. It doesn't seem noble. It seems like you're the president. He's just a guy leading a rally. But I actually think that's okay.
Right.
We're in the time we're in, and we're in a different space. Technology has changed things. This like elevated decorum, and we're too removed to participate from, is what a lot of politicians put off. Donald Trump doesn't do that, and right now it's kind of needed. If you think it's okay to lead a rally somewhere and have a chant that's death to America, I'm absolutely fine with my president tweeting, hey, stop saying that, or I'm gonna, whatever the weird stuff he says, I'm gonna send the police. Like,
well, You know, something really interesting about this kind of moment is you think back to 2016 to 2020 was sort of the woke maybe apex, right? Maybe those 8 years from like 2016 to like 2022 or something like that. It does seem like there's something receding. And what's really fascinating is if you look at Trump's polling numbers with Latino voters and with black voters, he's getting surging. He already got a larger percentage of the black vote. Trump already in 2016 and 2020 got a larger percentage of black vote than like any Republican for the last 20 years or whatever. But it's becoming significant. And I think that is an indication. And it does seem like a lot of the woke, like it seemed like it was a woke tsunami that was going to just wipe us all away. Like we were just going to get swept up. And now it feels like people are kind of seeing it a little bit. For a lot of people, the gig is up. A lot of people, they're like, I'm not going along with that anymore. I think corporations are kind of like the whole thing with Target and some of these corporations are like, okay, whoa, let's like pull the reins back a little bit on how hard we're going after some of this ideology. And I think some people are waking up to it. And I think there's a lot of, among Latinos and among black voters, I think there's a lot of family values among those voters. And I think they're recognizing Trump. Trump has something that represents non-illegal immigration. A lot of people who came here, a lot of Latinos who came here legally are not interested in illegal immigration. Right. And so I think there's something that people are kind of getting more fed up with the mainstream media narrative. That's becoming less powerful. People are getting their information from different places, and you're seeing a switch among minority voters.
Have you, do we know if there's ever been a case study like this where you've had a one-term president and then lost re-election, then you have another one-term president back to back, where we can see 4 years here, 4 years there, back to back. Yeah. And then now they're two guys now they're both running again, where you can see how the country was ran. I don't know.
Guess. Pick one.
I don't know that we've ever had that in a presidential election, maybe in at least 100 years. I can't remember one. And so to your point, people are starting to see clearly the two results. I think this will be studied for years to come. Because it's so unique and it's
it's like have you seen the stickers? There's Joe Biden. It says "I did that," and people put them on gas pumps and the price
everywhere.
Right? I did that, and I mean that's just one example. And I'm not saying the president can directly influence the price of gas or that he can control it necessarily, but
if you shut down pipelines,
that's you shut down which did. And so that's one example of maybe 20. That you've seen that when Biden took office, the policies that he's put in place, the things that he's reversed that Trump had put in place that were good. I mean, the way that our country is operating right now, with the borders being overrun with an invasion, on the brink of World War III, people chanting "Death to America" in the streets, inflation going through the roof, grocery bills and everything. I mean,
and not just that, then the gaslighting.
Yes, that everything's going well.
No, things are better than they've ever been. Americans are better than they've ever been. Inflation's coming down.
Come on, man.
People, what's that girl? What's his speakers? No, what's that girl's name?
KJP. I don't know what her.
Yeah. Jean-Pierre. It's like some Frenchy type thing. Anyways, dude, that chick is such a liar, and like it's lying in ways that are so blatantly like everybody puts gas in their car every week. Everybody goes to the store and goes shopping. I have a heart attack every time I go. I got 6 kids, dude. At Costco, I do most of the shopping for my family. I remember from 2 years ago what I was paying. There was a restaurant that recently put up a sign like oil for the fryer has gone up 3x. Like it was $32 for a 5-gallon container, and now it's $106, right? And it just goes through like all the different ingredients, just showing like what. And there's this picture of Biden. I did that, right? And it's like the way that they have lied about it. Like that's not what's happening. Inflation's going down. Americans are in a better spot. We have more buying power with the dollar. I just listen to that and I just think no one is believing this. That is so fraudulent.
Right. The border's okay. The border's not open.
Yeah.
It's a true 1984 style kind of disinformation. Like, and it's everybody knows they're not saying the truth. And they know they're not saying the truth, but that's just the way it is now, And that's, I think one of the things, my point about kind of all the things that have gone wrong with Biden is like, a lot of it is not even things that are outside of his control or the government's control. These policies that have been put in place are purposely destructive to America. And you can get into all the conspiracy theories, but you don't need to see that if there was a wall that was going up to protect our border, you not only stopped it, but you started tearing it down.
Yeah. Day one, you came in and started.
Well, so things like that, it's obvious that through his policies, without any kind of conspiracy theory needed, Biden and his regime have put in place policies that are trying to destroy or undermine or destabilize America. And Trump is someone that says, I love America. That alone is one of the things that I like most about Trump is to say, I love my country.
And a comparison with Biden and Trump, I put in our comment section, I think it was on one of our border shorts or something. Someone was talking about, the Republicans won't sign the bill to close the border. That's why the border's open. That's not why the border's open. Right? In his first week as president, Biden signed something like 30 executive orders, right? 10 of those were related to immigration and the border. Reversing all of Trump's policies with effectively opening the border. Right. He could stop that at any time he wants with another executive order. One of those things he also put in place was for an LGBTQIA plus divided by sign task force to make sure that the rights of LGBT illegal immigrants weren't being transgressed. And internationally, to look internationally for protections for non-American LGBTQs.
Yeah.
That's what we're funding. So he opened our border that's let in over 7 million people, which is the population of more than 30 of our states.
Like 35 states.
He's let all those in, and then he's just dumping money into trans LGBTQ international issues. Right. You got to be kidding me.
The border's an important one too, because if you get into the actual jurisdiction of the president, some of what people might maybe want Trump to do, like if you think he's going to fix your local roads, that's not really his deal. But the presidency is aimed at securing the borders. Yeah. So it's like a very specific dereliction of duty for the current President Biden. Like, I don't actually need Trump to fix everything. And we can get into what maybe people think of when they're like Christians think of when they think of a president. He's not our solution to everything. Right. But there are some very specific things that start at the presidency. And it has so many downstream effects when we don't get that right.
Bo said this on the Christian Nationalist podcast, but he said, one of the things we need is we need the president to come in and like help be the figurehead, we need our government to run our country and get out of the way of the church and let the church do what needs to be done as far as like evangelizing, discipling the nations, like discipling our nation.
And to be clear for people, we are not talking about a national church alongside the president. We're talking about the church in America.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So having the government do what the government is going to do. And one of the things that I think is valuable to me about Trump is Trump recognizes the threat that there is to religious liberty in our country and the threat to Christians and us being able to practice our religion as we believe God has called us to. And so you think about things like the baking a cake or building a website for the gay couples and that kind of stuff. Trump recognized that's an important threat to our thing. And it's clear that the Biden administration does not respect religious liberties. He does not respect the deep ingrained value of religious freedom. And so I think that's a significant part that as I look at Trump, I think Trump gets that part. Even if he's not 2 Corinthians and he's not a great, he's no, I don't know about
2 Corinthians.
I know some people are going to be offended. I don't know how sincere his faith is. I want to believe it. I want to believe that there's some sincerity there. And I also want to give somebody a second chance. I think he's probably had more access to and heard from more Christians in the last 8 years.
And he opens himself to it.
Right, and which is cool, right? There's something I respect about that and I like about that. And then there's a friendliness there. But I don't need to make some grand statement about Trump's faith and how Christian he is. But I wanted to bring up the other thing I think that, and this I think maybe the most salient, significant, major thing that Trump has done is there's been an exposure of the rot and the corruption of our institutions that Trump has really brought out. And it's kind of like figured into some things we've already said, but you look at the way that our institutions have been weaponized against him and have been weaponized against us. You think about the FBI investigations of him, the Russian collusion.
OSHA against us?
Yeah, all kinds of, like, so many different of our institutions.
The three-letter institutions.
The WHO, the WHO, all these kinds of ways that man, the corruption has been. I recently, you look at the way that January 6th people were treated with the way that the George Floyd riots, the way that they were treated, right? Just the
Fiery but mostly peaceful.
Yeah, here in La Mesa we had our 2 buildings burned down in downtown La Mesa.
Banks.
Yeah, 2 banks.
I heard that bank burned down peacefully though. So.
Yeah, right. You think about the disparity, and I actually recently, there's a guy that goes to our church that was part of J6, and he was recently arrested, and the FBI raided his house, and I went there. Me and one of our pastors went there. We were praying with the guy's wife and his family while the FBI is there arresting him. The terrorism task force is there. There's about 20 agents that are all AR-15. This guy is like not a threat of sweetheart. They end up pulling him over when he leaves his house in the morning. They bring him back. They have his whole family come out. They go in, they raid his house. This is now, they do it on a Friday. This is now 4 years after J6, right? Or 3 years after J6. And they arrest him on a Friday so that he has to spend all weekend in jail. And they've had this investigation going on for 3 years on this guy for whatever, for being, they charged him with 3 misdemeanors. Right. Okay. They had the terrorism task force, 20 people. They spent, it's got to be millions of dollars just on this case, investigating this one guy to charge him with 3 misdemeanors. Tell me who was tracked down like that for George Floyd riots or anything like that.
Or actual terrorists.
Coming
across our border.
Yes, it's just like, dude, I want to tell all you guys, and these guys are law enforcement guys. A lot of them are just doing what they're told, but they're part of this system that is the corruption is showing. Like,
if someone tells you to do evil, don't do what you're told.
Right. So, but without getting all that, one of the things we've seen, we were ready for the Mueller investigation. I was been told that Trump's going to be indicted any day, and he's going to, nothing like that happens. Then fast forward. In November of last year, of 2023, Trump announces he's running for presidency, okay? No former president in the history of the United States of America has ever been charged with a crime, okay? In a span of 4 months, Trump is indicted on 4 different, totally unrelated cases. It is so obviously the weaponization of our institutions, of our most important, right? The attorney generals and
law enforcement, our judicial system.
Yes, like the one that is intended to protect our freedoms is on display, and it's behind a showing because it is like so colludedly, so intentionally, so brazenly going after Trump in order to keep him out of, to try to discredit him, to try to keep him out of this election, that is mind-boggling. That anyone could look at it and think that's sincere. People on the left are looking at it and think that's a pretty weak case. And now here he is in New York, as we're sitting here today. Trump is sitting in New York, not allowed to go campaign, not allowed to go raise money. He has to sit there for this sham trial for apparently paying off Stormy Daniels in like 2015 or something like that. They could have brought that case anytime. Yeah. They wait until after he declares that he's running, and then they bring it. Yeah. It's like so fraudulent.
Well, I think one positive thing, or I guess one thing that kind of points to how bad the abuse is that when the case with them trying to bar him from the ballot, I think in Colorado, went all the way to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court even is split on most things because there's a very liberal component, and then there's other justices that are somewhere in between and some conservative. But that decision to say no, a state cannot bar a presidential candidate from the ballot, that was 9-0.
Yeah, not dog.
Right. And so even a Supreme Court that really can't agree on anything, a lot of times they agreed that this is a very, very dangerous precedent. So much so that we have to have a Supreme Court ruling, and it was unanimous.
Yeah. The other side of what you were saying is it's not just Trump that's being attacked and weaponized against. It's RFK Jr.
Who doesn't have Secret Service.
Yeah, who is trying to become a legitimate democratically appointed candidate through the DNC, and they changed the rules to not allow him to jump in. And then Biden refused through some, I don't know, loophole, a made up loophole, to give RFK Secret Service protection, even though his uncle was assassinated.
2 people.
Which is a very scary precedent.
candidate.
And so if the critics come to and say, oh, no, Trump's guilty on all of it, yada, 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 and the weaponization is just a farce and you're just making things up, well, then explain those two things and how it's any candidate that's coming against Biden, any threat,
Institutions, right?
yeah, or
But
institutions, is
But
coming
it's not, and the candidates, RFK, I don't really care about RFK so much. It's true what you're saying, but they're also coming after us, right? Like, they're coming after the guy in our church, right?
Whatever they're using against him, they're going to use against us. And this is a wake up call. This should be a wake up call for me, dude. You had said something like that about when we were talking about Christian nationalism. You would talk about politics. Well, a lot of times, in years past, people would be like, I don't really care about politics. Know what I think. Like, literally, it's affecting your regular life,
Everyday.
your regular everyday life, and so the danger of these institutions being corrupt and weaponized against people is like a legitimate danger. And one of the great things is Trump is obviously seeing, and that's why I say it's like, dude, you're showing your hand, like they're showing their hand. They're doing it so brazenly that I think it's going to backfire. Because I think what it does, hopefully it gives Americans an opportunity to see this is so corrupt. Like you think about the civil case that was against Trump in New York, right? That was the penalty for borrowing the bank. They said it was fraudulent or whatever. And you hear Kevin O'Leary come on. He's one of the guys, Shark Tank, and he says, listen, what you're doing to America's reputation with this is how every single building in New York City, every single building you see in Manhattan got done this exact way. And you're singling out Trump and you're leveling. No money was lost. There was zero money lost. None of the banks are down with this. This was a targeted go after Trump's money, try to get after his money. And I forget, what was it, $250 million or some kind of crazy civil judgment was leveled against him. Yeah, it was something crazy. And Kevin O'Leary is like, listen, people have seen America as a safe bet to invest their money from all over the world. You are sending a message to them that is no longer a safe bet. Like this is no longer a safe society where it's financially secure. He's saying you're sending the message that it's corrupt and you're gonna destroy the economy of New York City, of like one of our whatever.
There's a book by Fernando de Soto. It's called The Mystery of Capitalism, and he explores why capitalism doesn't work in other countries, and the root of it is corruption.
Yeah.
If you don't believe that the laws are going to be fair, you can't participate in a capitalistic society.
Yeah.
If you start to do these banana republic games and you can cook up a charge and then all of a sudden people look at it and with their plain eyes, they might not understand the legal jargon or the code that you're referencing, but if they can look at it with their plain eyes and say, oh, this is rigged, that's when you lose faith in institutions.
And you can shop it, you can get the right DA, you can get the right judge.
What I think Trump specifically does is he interacts with us in a way that is plain and is relatively uncurated and transparent.
I like that, yeah.
And it's refreshing because people can say, ooh, how you said that was ugly, but they can't be like, are you lying? And a lot of our other apparatus and our other politicians, you're like, but are you telling the truth? Like you're saying you'll do this, but then the bill you sign doesn't. And that, I think, is where, as Christians, like I get the sense, no matter how you want to vote, I think Christians want like a purity. They want this, like, he's too dirty to touch. And I think we're in a moment, and that like technology is exposing things, the pace of how we can get information. As Christians, we need to get a little bit more mature in how we think about it. They're all getting to that level with some kind of shadiness. Trump's is just out there more, and he's more direct about saying it. So I would be, our opening question was like, how do Christians get to the place where they can vote for Trump? Is like, stop trying to make the decision this like you're sitting on a cloud and you want things to be like heavenly and you don't want to touch. Our participation in the political process it brings us in close proximity to some ugliness.
It's like the respectability politics thing, real quick. This is like, you see, you can't put lipstick on a pig, right? Like our institutions have largely been decaying for a long time, but they have a new coat of paint every now and then, and it looks fine from the outside. But dude, the termite damage.
There's stuff inside that needs to get.
Yeah, and Trump is this brash, rough, unrefined in so many ways, which is hilarious because he's a billionaire from New York City. But he's so unrefined that he's like sort of offensive. But like, we should be way more offended by the actual
yes,
perversion,
exactly.
the actual brokenness, the actual vileness of so many things that have the presentation of being honorable,
whitewashed
tombs. But yeah, they're whitewashed tombs. Exactly right. They're just full of dead bones. You know what I mean?
To your point, Spence, when I talk to a lot of Christians and they get jammed up with voting for Trump, they think they make some equivalent to, if I vote for him, then I'm signing off on every sin that he's ever done in his entire life. And there's not a moral equivalency there where if you vote for someone for a job, you are signing off on every single thing that he's done. His affair, his infidelity, his whatever, it may be his, what was the other college scam that is levied against them, Trump University. It's like, you're not signing off on all of that, and you're over spiritualizing and taking on a burden.
The way I think about it is understand our humanness. We're all sinners. Like all of us, we're Christian men trying to do something good. We all have sins. We have sins we do daily. We have sins from our past. And it doesn't like there's this, I don't know, it's like a need to like disqualify or cancel people. And I think Christians get caught up with like, I can't touch that.
Right.
And I just don't think that's the space we're in. We have to get in there and kind of be wise and shrewd about how we're going to affect the changes we need to see in our country.
Well, and you're talking about incrementalism, or the left has embraced incrementalism for decades, where they're okay with inch by inch getting their policies in place and rolling back, conservative rights. And for some reason, Christians and conservatives cannot wrap their head around, I'm okay with incrementally grabbing back our rights, reforming our institutions, getting rid of this section of the rot, as you guys were talking about. And we're simpletons about it, where as a Christian, I look at Jesus and the Bible and I see some perfection. And then I'm watching him and I'm following him and I'm studying Jesus. And then I look at the world and there's none of that. And then I say, what? Like you said, I don't want to touch any of that. I can't touch it. But yes, you need to. You absolutely need to jump in and not be a simpleton.
There was this old show, and I'm not advocating watching it at all. It had a whole bunch of weird stuff, but I loved it for a little bit. House of Cards. And it was with Kevin Spacey. He did a whole bunch of trash and stuff, but the show was interesting. It gave like, this new way he talked to the camera is fun, but it was about politics in Washington, D.C. And I was talking with an older Christian woman, and she's great. She's, and one of the things she said, she was like, I don't want to watch it because I don't want to get disillusioned about what's really going on out there. And I was like, reasonable, but it is going on out there. And it's like, how do we, like, it doesn't contaminate you. You're strong enough. You're strong. I'm not saying watch the show. The show's dirty. Don't watch the show. But like, we need to, as Christians, build up that like confidence and resolve. We're going somewhere. If this person has this character flaw, has this sin or something, it doesn't contaminate what the Church of Christ, of Jesus, is about. We're going somewhere, and we can work through it. And so I think, well, let's look at, that's like something I feel a lot of Christians come with that complaint. Like, it's too dirty to touch. I can't. How he talked to that person.
Well, think about that with any other ministry. I mean, if you're going to volunteer with the homeless, you're going to volunteer with, third world countries or impoverished youth that live in the projects. Like, that's dirty. They're cussing. They're committing crimes. But you need to enter in there and be a light. And if you're going to remove yourself because it's a little dirty, you're going to get icky. I mean, that is such a pretentious
That's a great example.
Gospel.
This is an argument for being politically engaged and just saying, hey, I want to be involved in this. And even though it's not, the different rules and a lot of different players and whatever, I do want to bring it back to Trump for a minute, though, in this way, that, we think about results, right? We think about probably the greatest advance for a Christian cause in the last, I don't know, maybe in my lifetime was the repeal of Roe v. Wade. Right. And I just want to say, Trump was the reason we got that. Like Trump, one of the things that we, for conservatives, for Christian conservatives for a long time, what we've been talking about is the importance of the courts and importance of just judges, right? And so when we had the repeal of Roe v. Wade, because of the three justices, because of Amy Coney Barrett and Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh, he appointed those three justices. That's the only reason that Roe was overturned. Right. And it's not done. There's a lot more to be done on the pro-life front, but that was a massive victory.
And we got it using the proper channels with checks and balances in the system as designed. Yeah. That he nominated justices, they went through the process, then the case went to the Supreme Court and they rendered their decision. It wasn't through some 3-letter unelected agency.
Right.
It wasn't through some back channel thing or some executive order.
It. Right.
It was out in front. It was through the institutions of our government as they should be used. And now you could argue about, anyways, I think it was, like you said, it was a huge victory. A huge victory.
And I think people want to downplay that and say, whatever. But whatever you want to say about Trump, that's just the actual lived reality.
Yeah.
And that is a massive victory. And one of the things that, if nothing else, if there were no other policies, if it was just Biden plus that would have been a worthwhile vote, a worthwhile advancement for our country. And so I think as we're just looking across the space, I think you might think, icky, I don't want to get involved in politics, too dirty, too messy. But like, that's a real world result that happened because of Trump.
I cannot remember the name of the interviewee, but I was listening to a podcast and I think it was with Jordan Peterson. And the person who he was interviewing was the lead hostage negotiator for the country. And he had worked his way up through several agencies, and then he was appointed to that position during Donald Trump's tenure. And then he spent some time after in a similar facility where he was trying to. And one of the things, in terms of results, he said while he tried to negotiate with countries that had taken the United States citizens hostage, while he was doing that under Trump, it was a totally different experience. And it was because he would approach negotiations differently. He was like, our boys are coming to get that person back. You can negotiate with me now to make this different. And it was because of Trump's position. Trump had this position of, this is what we'll do. And it was completely known. It was known, and there was this resolve. So, and this goes to his point of strength.
Baghdadi.
And when that,
he died like a dog.
He died like a dog.
I said, don't cry, Abu.
We could hear
when that's known,
don't cry, Abu.
The results, and some of them are big results like that. The other are these little results because of the standard that he sets. His strength permeates down through everything that he can affect. And it changes how people can do their job.
So way back, I think it was 82, maybe it was 1980, when Reagan became president, right? It was the Iran, the hostage deal was going on. They had X amount of American hostages in Iran. And Jimmy Carter was president. He was negotiating with him. And Reagan was basically like, the day I come into office is the day the missiles start dropping on Tehran if those hostages are not back. The day he came into office, they released the hostages and came back. It really does matter.
It matters. When he was dealing with ISIS and these different things, he was like, he wasn't setting sliding dates. And if you even drop that back to just how you need to conduct yourself as a person, there's a lot of decorum that can be, we could want more from him. But when you set a deadline, when you say, I'm going to do this now, be about that. And Trump is that way. And I remember he dropped some bomb. He was like, look, I think it was with ISIS. I'm going to get some of the details wrong, but there were these little skirmishes and wars, and he was like, this is going to stop. He dropped the biggest bomb. It was the mother of all bombs. They're gone. It stopped. And maybe there's other downstream, effects that he no longer was there, so other things filled the vacuum and stuff. But there's this like, and that's really where we can't mess around in these times with wars and stuff with somebody who's like
Yeah.
always retreating, always sliding. We need a person who's going to stand for things.
The government's meant to carry us. It's carrying the sword for a reason.
Yeah.
Right. And Trump is a broadsword. He's not delicate. We need it. Biden, he can't do anything. He gets nothing.
And the president represents the nation in a way that he needs to project strength for the nation. A nation is not the same thing as an individual. The nation needs to be strong, formidable, right? That's how a nation can succeed and have peace, right? If we want peace, prepare for war. It doesn't say you want war.
Yeah.
But you must have the ability
those are
to back up
realities
the
of the world.
security
Exactly.
of your nation.
Exactly.
You know, and so I think that's one thing. I mean, we just saw it with Biden. You know, people know that he's not going to back it up.
The withdrawal from Afghanistan.
But with Iran, they asked him in a press conference about the issues with Iran threatening to attack Israel, and he just said "don't," as if he had the gravitas to stop it with one word. And people knew that he could not back it up. Yes. And what was it, the next day?
Yeah, right.
The next day.
Yeah. Well, and
they attacked.
He's not engaging these world leaders face to face, like Trump did, and that's really what you need, is confronting these world leaders and saying, hey, like you said, this is what's going to happen. If you don't do this, then this.
Well, yeah, and try it with a friendly but strong engagement first, like
Absolutely.
with these world leaders, right?
Well, and one of the interactions that he had with the press was, why are you legitimizing North Korea? Why are you legitimizing Kim Jong-un? And he looks at her in the face because I don't want your family to get bombed. Right? Okay,
Yeah.
That's why I'm doing this.
Yeah,
like, you simpleton, you moron. Like, you know. And so he's got to at least. Yeah.
He doesn't work in those terms.
Yeah.
Why are you legitimizing something? It's like, for me, a lot of times when I'm observing, and I hate to say the left, but let's just use that term. I'm observing how people think, and they're like, well, why are you legitimizing something? What do you mean? I'm not playing that game. I'm not trying to legitimize by talking about there's a thing or there's not a thing.
Yeah, deal with reality.
And Trump deals with reality. Like, there's a thing or there's not a thing. If there's no thing, then it doesn't matter.
I want to say, before we run out of time, I want to offer one criticism. During his first term, when we had Trump and we had both houses, he didn't do anything about the national debt. And I firmly believe that the national debt is the biggest existential crisis to our country.
He overspent a lot, and that was before COVID.
It was before COVID.
In COVID, we spent a crazy amount more. That's a huge problem.
That was a huge problem that I'm hoping he addresses if he gets elected to a second term, because our debt, we are being... we got downgraded by Standard & Poor's. Our bond rating went from AAA to AA. Now the IMF is saying that the United States monetary policy is putting the entire world in jeopardy because of our debt and spending. And so he had the opportunity to corral everybody and really get our spending.
That's really important to bring up too, because I do think it speaks to Douglas Wilson. We just listened to the Douglas Wilson and Tucker Carlson podcast, which is great. But Douglas Wilson says he's not the solution. He's part of the solution, but it's not political. We need to be active and engaged in a way where we understand government has to shrink. And it's not only on Trump to enact all of that. It's everybody participating more, understanding the roles of government, and being I don't know, not being as feeling based in terms of how we're trying to perceive, and this is to Christians. It is fine to be empathetic and sympathetic and have our feelings involved in what we need to do. But mature Christians should also be like, there's brass tacks we got to get down to. We have to
make advances.
We have to make advances. We have to recognize and pull back, and government spending is going to get pulled back on multiple levels that has to happen. We have to deal with the bureaucratic state. We have to do those things, but it's multiple levels that we need to be participatory.
Hey, I would want to say something too from just like, because I think all of this has been woven through with us having a Christian perspective, but I think even from just like a distinctly, kind of Christian perspective, I would say if people right now that are Christians are struggling with, I don't know about voting for Trump, that pragmatism, it feels like it's going to be like, I would rather be principled and not do it, right? That kind of thing. I would say pray earnestly about that, get counsel about that, but then also read through the Bible and look at the leaders in the Bible that God has used for good. Look at their flaws, right? Look at David, look at different people like that. And I'm not equating Trump, please don't say that.
Or Nebuchadnezzar.
Right? But so God was able to use even leaders that had great flaws to accomplish things within a nation. just ask yourself in this election, which one of these leaders, Biden or Trump, do you think would enact policies that would protect your nation and honor the laws of God in your country more?
Your rights as a family.
More. That's it. And ask yourself that, and be prayerful about it, and then vote based on that. But please vote, because I understand, because I've been in the seat of wanting to be principled and saying I just don't want to touch it. Yeah. But please do not do that. We are past the time now in our country where you can sit back on your principles and watch your country burn.
Avoid getting. And you know that I think that's a very important statement. I think the other statement is actively be praying for Joe Biden. Like, we have to be praying for everybody that's in leadership. I don't think any of us here are against Joe Biden in terms of I want him to fail. He's the leader of our country. So we need to be doing both. We need to be looking at who's going to make the best way forward. We also need to be praying for the people that do get elected. And I think that's the kind of tension Christians should be. We have to be able to understand there's competing forces. I want Joe Biden. I want him to win the Iran negotiations. I don't want him to fail.
Right. We want him to fail the election in 2024.
Yeah, I want him to lose. We want
him to win on every other state.
This is, I want America to be great.
Yeah.
The Make America Great Again. Boom. We're going to have to go through this and be.
Get him a hat.
I'll wear the hat. I actually bought. I went to the Trump Hotel and I bought one.
Oh.
Yeah, I'll wear it all.
In Vegas?
Yeah. Cool.
All right, let's. I think that's a good place to close it. And just an exhortation of Christians. Let's be prayerful. Let's be seeking God, His favor on us. We don't want His judgment. Lord, would you have mercy on us and help us to participate in a way that is wise and in a way that is pleasing to you and honors you. And so God bless you guys, and we will see you next time.